Are you ready for a whole new take on the art box? Today is the start of a brand new series, and we'll introduce you to an art box you won't have to subscribe to. You will never receive a box without first knowing what is in it. And if you already have an item in the box, you can choose to omit it and reduce the overall cost of your box. Sound too good to be true? It isn't. These were all things that used to frustrate me about art subscription boxes when I was receiving them. And today I want to introduce you to the Clark Fine Art Curated Collections. Find out what you can expect and how it all works as we dive in to my very first box. For complete transparency, I want to share with you all that while I was already looking at things from this company for my first box, all of a sudden when I went to order what I wanted, it was no longer there. And I was looking at this stuff just after Christmas last year, just before the first of the year. And all of a sudden, what I was looking for was gone on their website. So I reached out and asked what happened to the set that I wanted to share with you guys. And they told me that that set had gone away. It is being revamped or redone. And I'm not sure what it will be in the future. But I'm sure that the company will let me know. So I had to alter what I chose. Now, in talking with the company, they decided that they were going to send me one of their other sets that was comparable for me to examine. And I thought, you know what? That is still a perfect set to start with. And this was sent to me by Meeden. I was already going to curate a collection with Meeden products for you. So, you know, it's just slightly different than what I initially had chosen. However, I have an item from the original collection that I'm going to use as an add-on. And everything else, though, that I was going to do is still here. So I felt that that would be perfectly fine. But I did want to be completely transparent with you all that Meeden did send me these supplies. So I did not spend my own money on them, but I was going to regardless. So that didn't alter, them sending me this did not alter my desire to include this for you in our first box. Okay, disclaimer over. Let's get into the box and see what is here. With these curated collections, I think they're going to be something that the art subscription box companies may not appreciate, but I'm hoping that all of you do. So let's see what is in our first box. So today I have for you a watercolor paintbrush set. There are 10 brushes in here. We will open all of these up in a moment. First, we'll just unbox. Then we have a porcelain palette. You guys know how much I already have been sharing that I love my Meeden porcelain palettes. So to have another one, I'm super thrilled. And I think that if you choose this, if you haven't worked on porcelain yet, this is going to be a great way for you to experience that. And, you know, just fair warning, it might change the way you want to mix your watercolors going forward. Next, we have a watercolor paint set. And I was really curious about Meeden's watercolor paints. I don't expect these to be anything above like a student grade paint. So I'm not expecting like cadmium colors or cobalt colors in this set. But let's just see what we have on the back here. One of the things that I was very excited to see is Meeden does include the pigment colors. So you know what pigments you're working with. And we all know that I think that that is important. There are a few single pigment colors in this set. There are a few multi-pigmented colors. We're going to look at all of these. But I thought, you know what? If you've never tried watercolor before, this might be a great way to start because the price point for this month's box is going to be very equivalent with your regular art subscription type boxes. So we have 24 colors. And then, of course, you have your Meeden 100% cotton cold press paper. You guys know I love this paper. If you haven't experienced it yet, again, this would be a great time for you to give it a try. Let me just get the box out of the way. And I'm going to pull, well, actually, instead of unwrapping this one, I'm just going to bring mine that I'm already working through over, but you know, they are exactly the same thing. And this one that I got in the set, like this one, I've shared with you before that they've changed the design on the front, and I'm sure that this is still just working through old stock. This is the same as that. It does have the blue glue. You can order these with the new cover and the clear glue that's on the side. I don't think it really matters one way or the other, but just so you know, if you got one and the cover was different, no, you're not getting something different. You're just getting the new packaging. All right, I'm going to take the plastic off of this so that it will stop glaring for the most part. Oh, no, that is still wrapped in plastic. So there's plastic on the outer to keep the lid on. And then there's plastic inside to actually keep the paints in. So I like that. Now these are 12 ml tubes. You're going to be able to fill a couple half pans with this. The other thing about this set, and part of the reason that I chose this, is it is Meeden has made it very easy for you to order everything in this box with one click. And of course, I have that linked in the description below. And not only is Meeden helping us start off our curated collections well, they have given me a code for you guys that will get you a discount when you purchase your collection. It is code Clark10, and I will pop that up right here for you. It is code Clark10. You enter that in the discount code area at checkout, and that will give you a discount on your purchase when you order directly from Meeden. I certainly recommend ordering directly from Meeden. That is where you will be able to get this set all together like this. Now, this set on Meeden currently is $34.95, which is very comparable to any of your other art subscription boxes. Not only is it $34.95, but for $34.95, you're going to get paintbrushes, and I will open those so that you can take a peek. You're going to get something to mix your colors on. You're going to get something to paint your colors on, and you're going to get 24 colors. So if you have never tried watercolor before, but you've been hanging out around the channel here, and maybe it's something that was starting to interest you, I thought this would be a great set to start with. And that's why I wanted to do my first curated box with a set like this from Meeden, because it was going to come with everything that you needed. Now, I did mention that originally I was considering a different painting set that Meeden put together, and that one had these watercolors. Let me just get this plastic off as well. So that had the watercolors, the brushes, the paper, and I can't remember if I believe it also had this little porcelain paint palette. But in addition, and it was a little bit more expensive than this, but it wasn't a lot more expensive. And in addition, it had the Meeden rinse well. Now, I have put two little paint pucks in mine. This is something that Meeden did send to me. They sent me this palette and this set. There is an add-on that I'm going to share with you in a moment that I purchased. Now, Meeden, of course, did give me, like they gave me for you, a discount code and help with getting that item. However, just to be completely transparent with you guys, Meeden did send me the rinse well. Now, I think that this rinse well, this is very heavy. This isn't, if you put this on your desk, it's not going anywhere. Again, I did put two little paint pucks in mine. I really like just being able to, when I'm like rinsing my brush, if I need to get a little extra color out, I find that those in the corner really help me out. I can link to those. They were not part of what I had in mind for this month's curated collection. But I will link them below just in case you're interested, because you can get those in like packs of, I think they're like 5 or 6 of them. So I will put them in the description as well. But this is porcelain. It is very sturdy. You get your 2 wells, and this is very, it's a decent size. So it's about 3 1/4 to 3/8 high. Let's see, that would be about 8.5 centimeters for those of you who are centimeters. And then I'll just put this across the top so we can see. Right, it's about 6.5 inches wide. Each pot is about 3 inches wide. And here by 4.5. I love the amount of water that this holds. I love now, I have my clean or my, which however you use it, your dirty water, your clean water. I really like this. I love that it has now, with the addition of the paint box in there, I think it's a great little plus. But this would be an add-on for this month. Now, I will occasionally share add-ons with you to the curated collections. So, and they will just be a little something extra that would make it kind of like a premium box, if you would, where you can choose to get it or not. Again, if you already have something to hold your water and you don't need that, you certainly don't need to get it. But I love it on my desk. Every time I've used this since I've gotten it, it's very sturdy. It doesn't move. I'm not worried about tipping it over. I love this rinse well. I have used this multiple times, gotten that water very dirty and disgusting. And every time when I clean it out, it does not stain. It comes perfectly clean. I definitely recommend it if you are looking for another rinse well. All right, let's take a peek at the palette that would come with your set. And I'm going to tell you why I chose to do this these curated collections and what I hope you will get from them, how I hope they can benefit you. And certainly, I would love it if you let me know in the comments. I'm really looking forward to hearing from you guys on this. Is this something that sparks your interest? I'm trying to decide if I'm going to do these monthly, bi-monthly, because there's going to be a lot more that goes into this, and we'll get to that in a moment. But yeah, if the interest is there and you guys are excited about these and you really want more, then it will be something that for sure I would do on a monthly basis. If it's not as, well received as I hope, and then I may try them on like a bi-monthly basis just to see, do they get some traction and are people interested in them? It's like I said, there's going to be a lot of work to curate a collection that is going to work together, that is going to be cohesive. One of my biggest complaints with some of my art boxes was I used to sit there and see the supplies I'd get and just wonder, who curated this box? Were they even an artist? There would be things thrown in together that, didn't want to work well together. And I didn't like that. And that was something that I wanted to be able to change. Hence, starting to curate my own collections. The next add-on that I think will really benefit this set, and this was going to be an add-on even if I had the other set that I originally wanted that had the rinse well, the brushes, the paper, the paint. I wanted to add this on as something that I think would most benefit you with this collection. And even though I know it's going to come with this little mixing palette, you do see here, this is a little mixing palette. And it has 7 wells. And yes, granted, you can make a painting with limited colors. Usually, your colors in a single painting probably aren't going to go over this. They could, but generally speaking, we tend to limit ourselves to keep our painting cohesive. So this could work, but you'd be putting out paint and working with wet paint, from the tube each time. For beginners, that can be hard working with watercolors straight from the tube because you just end up with too much pigment, and it's really hard to get that pigment to water ratio, especially when you're just beginning. So one of the things that I thought would be a fantastic add-on, this is also for Meeden. I wanted this to be a one-stop shopping experience if you chose to dive into this month's collection. And that was this Meeden porcelain paint palette. Now this is 6 by 4.5 inches, just under an inch thick. It also has a lid. Let's open this up and I'm going to explain to you why I think this, if anything, if you choose either of the add-ons, this is definitely the one to go with for sure. I really think it completes this box, and at its price point right now, it's going to complete the box, and I still think it will keep you under or right around $50, which again is pretty consistent with what some of the art subscription boxes are out there. By the time you pay for shipping, you know, you're in it for $50. So let's talk about why I love this palette. When I saw it, I was like, I have to get one of those. And I have a feeling I will end up getting more than one of these. So let me just double check for you. Yeah, right now on Meeden's website, this palette is $15.95. This one's $34.95. So I'm just rounding up, 35. And this is 16. Now, that puts you at 51. Sometimes you are right there if you're getting an art subscription box. And with Meeden, as soon as you spend, I think their threshold is $39.95, you're going to get free shipping. So you're going to get free shipping on this box. So you don't have to worry about if you get this, you're going to have shipping on top of it. At least that's true for here in the US. I can't speak to if you're in another country that Meeden ships to because I am not 100% positive about that. But let me share this with you. I'm so excited about this palette. The lid is porcelain. I was so thrilled when I realized that the lid of this palette is not plastic. It itself is also porcelain. And then here we have these little round wells, and they're 6 by 4. There are 24. How perfect is that for your 24 colors? I thought this was a great way that you could put your colors into this palette. I'm going to do that in a moment. And then not only do you have your palette, and this doesn't take up that much space on your desk. I mean, if you look at this together, so if you had your colors in your mixing area, you're taking up about 9 inches of space in height on your desk. And it's still only about just over 6 inches wide. 6 by 9. The paper is 10.2 by 7. So you can see the paper completely covers the palette. So if I had the paper on my desk beside my palette, I mean, I'm like really zoomed in. For some reason, I'm really zoomed in on. So you see there, that's not taking up, there's my hands. That is not taking up a lot of space on your desk. If you have a limited workspace, this is going to be fine. You can take your brushes, either have them in your box or, you know, set them in a cup. Just always let them dry flat. I'm really excited to give some of these brushes a try. We will look at the sizes that come in here in a moment and talk about those. Something else that I really was excited about with a box that I curate for you is that unlike an art subscription box, these videos are going to come out on the first week of every month, or the first week of every month that I do a box. Again, the frequency of these boxes is going to depend on you guys. My analytics say you guys love when I do a box. And you've seen that video where I had all the boxes that accrued. That's happened more than once. And it happened more than once because I just wasn't thrilled with what was inside the boxes. What can you guys expect from me? You know that I like water-soluble media. So I would expect that we're going to see some boxes with water-soluble media in them, be it watercolor gouache, watercolor pencils, just all things water-soluble, of course. That's what I think. And when I say water-soluble, I don't mean like acrylics, although, you can use those with some water. But I'm talking watercolor gouache, things like that. But that doesn't mean that every box will be, because you also know I love exploring art supplies. I mean, exploring art is the name of our art group. And I think that occasionally we're going to do a box that maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's oil pastel, maybe it's a regular pastel, maybe it's acrylic. Those could happen, but I just want you to know what to expect from me is that those will be like probably special occasions. Most often you're going to see something in the realm of what I use most often here on the channel, because that keeps everything kind of cohesive. And that might help you, maybe you're a person that prefers that kind of box, and this would help. The other thing that I like and in thought that this would be of value to you is that it is going to make it so that you see what's in the box first. You're not subscribing to a box. I'm not shipping this out to you every month. I'm just curating a collection that you can choose to purchase or not. Not only do you get to see it first when I unbox it for you, but then you can go and choose, do you need everything? That was another thing I hated about my art boxes is, why do I have 3 of the same Tombow pen? I don't need 3 of that same pen, but they came in different boxes. You get to see them first. And if there's an item that you already have, you don't have to purchase it. If you want that collection, you only purchase the parts of the collection that you don't already have. So it will save you money. Not to mention, you get to see before you purchase, which means you're not getting boxes like I have in the past that I go, if I saw this box first, I wouldn't have got it. I would have passed. Well, there's a reason they don't do that. Because they want you getting every single box regardless of whether you love it or not. I don't want to do that. I want you to know that every time you invest in one of the collections, that you're going to be excited for it to arrive at your door. So not only do you see the collection first, but then I give you 2 weeks that you can order it in. So the first week of the month, I will share the curated collection. And then 2 weeks later, during the 3rd week of the month, I am going to either during a live stream or by video or by both. I haven't decided yet. You guys can please, I would value your feedback and love to know what you would prefer, because then in the 3rd week, we're going to come back together and we're going to use the supplies. So now you will have your box in front of you and we will have the same exact supplies and can be sitting down creating the same exact thing. And that might help you be able to maybe get some techniques, because sometimes when you're trying to follow along with another artist and you're using different supplies than that artist, it's really hard to replicate what they're doing. But I think if we all have the same, then it's a lot easier to kind of test the waters with those supplies and kind of feel them out and create with them. That said, I'm really excited about this box, guys. I really am excited. I'm like I don't have huge expectations for the paint, but I was absolutely curious because I look at this as it's probably like a student grade paint, which is fine. And if you're just starting at this price point, why not dive in? This would also be a wonderful, now let me just cover that up, because again, in the basic collection, you're going to get your paper, your brushes, your paint, and a palette for $35. This would be a perfect gift if you know an artist who is interested in trying watercolor. Now, I don't know what my opinion is going to be after I try these paints, but we're going to try them together for those of you who wish to dive in and explore this set with me. Let's look at these brushes. I like the colors, beautiful. They're very lightweight. Oh my gosh, these are very light in the hand. If I grab, and it doesn't say the size. Do we have a size listed on the box maybe? So all of these are showing your sizes for your brushes. Immediately looking at this brush set. Now, I haven't used them yet. I will in a second, or in just a little bit. That is pretty comparable for this round. Let me get my, well, there's a Neptune size 10. So that's pretty close to a 10. I was going to say about an 8. Is this my 8? Yeah. So here's my silver black velvet size 8. Well, it's a little fluffy. Hold on. There we go. I didn't completely get that wet, but there. So there's my silver black velvet 8. So yeah, I mean it is. It's closer to like the Neptune size 10. Yeah, here's my Mimic 12. And you see it's definitely not like the 12. So I would agree. That's about the size of a 10. And then I would say that this is like our next one would probably be around the area of like what you're used to if you would picture, here's a Mimic size 6. Very similar. They're very similar in size to that. So like a 10, a 6, probably about a 4, and then we get smaller, more detailed from there. I would love to see one of these smaller brushes. Like if Meeden considered doing another set of brushes for watercolor artists, I would love to see a little more weight in the handle. I mean, if you have a Princeton Neptune, yeah, it's lighter than that. I mean, I think these are light. It's lighter than that. My Mimic brush is definitely heavier. But I think my Mimic brush actually has slight bit more weight than my Neptune does. So just kind of, I'm trying to like think about brushes that you guys might have that would give you kind of a frame of reference. These are very lightweight, but they're very pretty. I love the colors in them. Unlike some other brushes that I've shared in the past, these ferrules are not larger than the area that the bristles are inside. First impression looking at them, I like it. One thing I would say is if they considered another set for watercolor artists, I would get rid of the fan brush. I don't think I need 3 flat brushes. I think this is a good size. And then these are longer, where this is more like a bright. And then these are like definitely wash. Yeah, I would get rid of the little guy. And I would like to see like a script, like an actual liner brush, like a rigger. Wow, the brain just like stopped for a second. Like a rigger or a script liner that's like the longer bristles. I think that would benefit even the beginner artist better. I don't think that 3 brushes that are this size, this tiny, are necessary, in my opinion. It's fine, and I would use them all, because once I destroy a tip on one, I would still have 2 more that are of similar size if I wanted detail. But I would love to see this become like a rigger. I'd love to see one of these 3 go away and see a larger size, like more like a 12 or 14 come into play in the rounds. I love having the wash. And then perhaps maybe if one of the smaller flats went away, I think that, in my opinion, and you let me know in the comments what you think, doing something like an oval wash, whether it be a 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch. I think an oval wash would be a better choice to put in a water. If this is going to be like a complete set of watercolor brushes for artists, if we had an oval wash and possibly even like a dagger. Nobody's asking me to make my own set of brushes, so you just take this with a grain of salt. All right, I've taken 3 brushes out of the set. And what I'm saying is, give me a rigger. Take this middle size of the small brushes. Give me a larger 12 or 14 size round. Right? So I have a couple small detail brushes that are like a 2 and a 4. This is being the equivalent of like a 6. That's kind of like a 6, 8. That's like a 10, size 10 round. Make this like a 12 or 14 round. Give me an oval wash. Give me a dagger. And the couple flats. I think a set like that, you've got a perfect set of brushes for a watercolor artist, whether they're just starting or have been painting for a long time. So Meeden, if you're watching, that's just my opinion. I think a couple of these, and there may be artists that would go, oh no, I would much rather have the fan brush versus, but in watercolor, I never use fan brush. I just don't. That's just me personally. So again, nobody's asking me to design a set of brushes. Who knows, maybe sometime in the future, but yeah, and maybe just a slight bit more weight in the handles of the wood. But first impression, that's my first impression. You guys drop me a comment and let me know, what do you think of my choices? Do you agree, or do you say no? There is a different brush I would much rather see. Maybe you're like, how about some kind of quill, instead of a dagger? Maybe you want like a little quill brush that could go in there. I don't know. And again, this is like if I was building my dream set of brushes that I think would be perfect for every watercolor artist from beginner to advanced. That's just my opinion. But you do get a plethora of brushes in varying sizes. I do like that at least one of those is large enough to be in the range of like a size 10 round. Because most times you see these sets and yeah, they're full of these little brushes and you don't have enough of this larger variety. So kudos to Meeden for that, because you do have the variety. And look at the points on these. I can't wait to see once I rinse these out and use them, how those points hold up. So excited about that. I've already shared with you guys, I don't know how many times, that I absolutely love the Meeden 100% cotton cold press paper. I love it. I paint with it all the time. This was done on Meeden 100% cotton paper. This was another project done on the Meeden 100% cotton paper. I love the way my colors can move. I just really, really enjoy the paper. I think the price point is perfect. Yeah, I don't think you can go wrong on it. If we're looking at a couple other things I've done, I did my interesting swatches. That was on the Meeden 100% cotton paper. Again, cold press. This was all cold press. And if you remember, I also did my winter snow globe was done on this 100% cotton paper. So if you get this box, yes, the paints will be different, but you can also go back to all of those videos and you can paint along. This project here was actually a step-by-step live stream. We did it all real time together. So you could certainly go in and paint this if you got this set. So that would just be more projects that you could follow along with if you choose to get the curated set. I just think this is perfect. In fact, on the desk, because you guys know, my mixing space tends to, I tend to mix crazy. It just grows and grows. So this is perfect. I have been liking having section spaces because it kind of helps keep me contained versus on my big flat area. But I'm going to be bringing you in the very near future some other beautiful choices that I've also invested in from Meeden in their ceramics. I love their ceramic palettes. I don't think I can say that enough. I do. I love their ceramic palettes. I am going to real quickly, I'm going to speed this up for this, put these colors into the wells because we need to see what we're getting. What do these look like? Okay, and you guys know I've shared this just recently with my Daniel Smith palette that I created. If you haven't seen that video, I'll put a card up here. But I like to work kind of like in a serpentine fashion in my palettes. And just so that like it's not this orange and then the red that's closest to that orange is way over here. I kind of like to keep them like close. So I work in a serpentine fashion. You can do these however you want. Had I given this more thought before I started, I actually would have started this palette, I think, with like my warm reds and gone through this way. And then as I came through my greens, then I would have gone into my yellows and then into my earth tones. But I already have the yellows and the oranges in there. So I'm going to work my way through my yellows, through my reds, to my purples, my blues, my greens, and then my more earthy colors. Continuing right along. I love the look of the tubes. All of the information. You have the color representation in what looks like the handle of a brush. And then all of the tubes have their name, their pigment, the light fast information, and whether it is transparent, opaque, or semi. Everything's right there. If we take a quick look at the tube, they are metal tubes. You don't have to turn it over to get all of the information that you need. It's all right there on the front. I love that. Kudos to Meeden for that. I wish more suppliers did that, where everything was like right there, right, nice and handy. I also love the lids. These were super easy to open. Thank you. Some of the paint caps are so hard to get off. Those were not. They were very easy for me to get into. I think I'm ready to swatch these out. I'm going to share with you, I think there's something missing from this set, just at first glance. And I also wish I would have arranged a couple of my colors differently. Like, I didn't pay attention as I came into the earth tones, and I wish I would have done my burnt sienna, then my burnt umber, then my raw umber, but it's not that way, and that's going to have to be okay because it's already in the palette. For starters, we have titanium white, PW6. I think you guys know how I feel about white in watercolor. I rarely use it. I think it's fine. It's absolutely fine to have it. And if you are someone who likes to use white in your watercolor, I say go for it. You know, you do you. That's fine. Now, that is quite a bit of pigment. I'm still seeing some of that black line coming through. So even at that, it's not super opaque, which I'm glad to see because this is watercolor, not gouache, right? Now, which means if I mix it with some of my other colors to get more pastel versions, hopefully it's not going to make it look chalky or it's not going to make it look weird. It's just going to work and still have some transparency to it. Okay, next up is lemon yellow, and that is PY3. Things dry so quickly in my studio. I want to just kind of wet the area first, like I usually do. I'm going to grab a little bit of this, hopefully grab some of this pigment on my brush. I'm looking to see, are they spreading? How do they move? This cotton paper is absolutely wonderful to work on. I think you'll probably hear me say that now, and you'll probably hear me say it when we actually get to paint with these in a couple weeks. I love this paper. Next up, we have pale yellow, which is PY1. Pale yellow. Lemon yellow was PY3. I've seen that pigment before. This is pale yellow PY1. And you know what? I think this is the first time I've ever seen that used in any of the paints that I have. And I'm not That's not a positive or a negative. I just have not seen it used in any of the paints that I have that I can recall. Okay. Next up, we have gamboge. And this is, you're going to see a pattern start to happen with these watercolors. So gamboge is PY1 and PO13. So it's a multi-pigment color. It's a convenience color. PY1 is pale yellow. PO13 is the orange yellow that we're going to see in just a little bit. So those are used to make up this convenience color. Quite a few of the convenience colors that are in this set can be made up or mixed with two of the other colors that are also in this set, with some exception. We'll get to that. But I don't think that's a bad thing either, because it is a convenience. If it's a color that you really like, it being a convenience, it's already mixed up for you, and you're not going to use up more of the other two colors to keep making that one color. So far, these are going down really nicely on this paper, which I suspected they would. I'm really curious to see how they dry down and then re-wet. Next up, we have yellow ochre PY42. Now, I'm really curious to see, do I have the granulation from PY42? These are already, they're already starting to like skin up on the tops from when I put them in my wells. I'm telling you guys, things dry so fast in my studio. Ooh, look at that color. Oh yeah, we are definitely going to get some really nice granulation happening with this one. We'll kind of watch that one develop. So next up is that orange yellow, which is the PO13 we saw coming together with the pale yellow PY1 to make up our gamboge. And I wrote the wrong thing. I wrote yellow ochre in the wrong spot, so that's what that's all about. So here we have our orange yellow. I thought we'd do nice big swatches today. I might make a small one that would like go with this, keeping this these colors with this palette. But for today, I thought it would be nicer to see them all bigger, because I know when I did just did my Daniel Smith palette, it was a little hard to see my swatches. I wanted more mass tone on this side. I really grabbed a lot of pigment there. Not that I necessarily meant to, but I can really see it spreading through that wash. And a lot of that, yes, some of that has to do with the paint, but a lot of that also has to do with the paper. I just love how nice and smooth my washes, that I can get my washes using this paper. It is so forgiving. And I think for a beginner starting out, you can't go wrong with this cotton paper from Meeden. I think this is a beautiful introduction to cotton paper. It is affordable. Oh, we will talk about that as well. The value in this box, if we look at all of the items separately, this is violet, which is PV23. Some of you may know that as dioxazine purple. If we look at the value for all of the items, like if we purchased them separately and compared that to what this box would actually cost you, it was another reason why Meeden was my first choice, or was my choice for doing my first curated box for you, because I knew that not only was I going to be able to bring you a great value, but the folks at Meeden were going to give us a discount code just for my audience to be able to use if you decide to get this. So as we're swatching, I'll just kind of put it up on the screen here. We'll just kind of add the numbers up. The little palette that you would get with this set, which I already shared with you guys, was $12.95 if you purchased that individually. So our palette is $12.95. Our watercolor paints are 24 watercolor paints. Those retail on their website for $17.95. At the time of filming this, they're currently on sale for $14.95. So we're going to keep that in mind. Our next color is Brilliant Purple, and that is PW6, so our titanium white, and PV23, which is our violet. So again, you could mix this color, but they're giving it to you in a convenience. And look at the difference from here to here. And look at it just starting to take off in that wash. So pretty. I think it's definitely of value to have these convenience colors. Like I said, it's going to save on using up the colors that are in there to make that convenience color. I'll just kind of let that spread around and look at that. I like that. I like it. I like it a lot. Next up, we have our rose, which is PV19. So pigment violet 19. We see this in like our quin rose and our quin red. So they're just calling it rose, and I forgot to wet the paper first. I'm just going to loosen up this wash brush. I think that one had a little bit more in it. It's not rinsing out as easy as my rounded. There it goes. It wasn't rinsing out as easy as my rounded. Here we go. That holds a great deal of water. I like it. Set that aside. So rose, our PV19. So far, I'm loving what I'm seeing in this palette. And the colors, I'm liking, like, as far as the pigment load in the colors. Like I said, this, I expected this to be like a student grade paint. And going into it with that expectation, I'm really not disappointed so far. In fact, I'm actually a little pleasantly surprised. Just gonna drop a little bit more in here. I want to see how that moves. Dropping it like that, I think this is going to show you like just how nice this paper. Already I can see in my violet. As I was grabbing prices for you, some of these had time to start really drying, and I like them. So far, I like them. Crimson Red is PR21 and PR13. So PR21 we're going to see up here a little bit further in the Scarlet Red. PR13 isn't in the palette. So this is one that you couldn't mix from colors you already have, which I like seeing that as well. I also like that you have a cool red that's a single pigment. I mean, yes, it's a pigment violet, but a lot of people use the Quin Red, Quin Rose as a cool red. But then we also have Scarlet, which is going to be a warm red, and that's just a PR21. So that's going to be a single pigment color that you can mix with. You also have a warmer yellow, and a cooler yellow in the PY3 and PY1. So you could use those two yellows as your mixing yellows. Not that you can't use the Gambots, just know it already has PO13 in it in addition to the yellow. So you have another pigment in that. Next up we have Vermilion. So Vermilion is PR21, which we'll see here in a second from our Scarlet Red, and PO13. So this one is a mixture of the PO13 and the PR21, the orange, yellow, and the Scarlet Red. You could mix this color. Who loves using oranges? I don't use oranges. I don't find I use oranges so much. Look at that. That's really pretty. That is a bright color. Definitely looks like a vermilion. All right. And another thing that I will say is looking at all of these tubes, as far as the Lightfast ratings that are on them, with the exception of PO13, and this kind of makes me question some of the others, because with the exception of this one, you see has 2 stars. All the rest have 3 stars. But if this has 2 stars and you have PO13 in this color, the vermilion, and PO13 over here in the gamboge, I have to wonder if they have a color that is 2 stars in them. Are they actually 3 star? I don't know. I can't speak to that. I'm not doing Lightfast tests on these, but I just wanted to point that out. For the most part, you can say that this should be a pretty Lightfast set according to what is printed on the tubes. And you can always look up the pigments and see, is it a pigment that is normally Lightfast? Oh, I forgot to wet my paper again. Is it a pigment that is normally, tends to be light fast? Kind of draw your own conclusions from there. You can also, create your own swatches and put them in your window and wait and see what starts to happen. But like I said, I would picture this set as a learning set. I mean, I don't know, you might get them and just fall in love with them and want to paint with them all the time. So far, definitely, I'm liking what I'm seeing thus far. Next up, we have Prussian Blue. Now, Prussian Blue is PB15 and PV23. PV23 we saw right up here. It's that violet, that dioxazine purple. My colors are already getting like that dull. You can see they've gone so much more dull since we've been recording. And I keep forgetting to wet my paper. I'm so excited to get into the color that I keep forgetting to wet my paper. And then there's PB15. We're going to talk about that in a minute too. So Prussian Blue, PB15 is phthalo blue, and PV23, which would be like your dioxazine purple or your violet that's right here. So Prussian Blue. Well, I just went all the way with that one, didn't I? Sorry, we'll put a little bit more. I've been trying to pull it out lighter. The brush holds water great. Yeah, no complaints there. I haven't seen a single hair shed from this brush. Not from the wash brush either. So far I'm really pleased. Now, as with any brush set, I'm going to use these coming up here for a while, because I want to know, is this the affordable brush set that I could be recommending to you guys? Because, I tried the Nick Pro set and withdrew my suggestion that was a decent set to get because all the ferrules started coming loose. And I just don't think I can recommend something that is going to start falling apart after you've used it for a little bit. So I would be thrilled to find out if these are going to be a set of brushes that I can recommend for those of you who are looking for an affordable set of watercolor brushes. Which brings us to what these brushes retail for. These brushes, as of the time of recording, retail on Meeden's website for $19.95. I think that's very affordable. I think that's affordable for what you're getting as far as the variety and size. This is Ultramarine PB29. I'm just trying to I want to see what kind of granulation we get from this one. PB29 is normally a color that will granulate. So far we have $12.95 for our palette, $17.95 for our watercolor paint set. At the time of recording, it is on sale for $14.95. $19.95 for our set of brushes. And our watercolor paper, which is 20 sheets of 10.2 by 7 inches, 300 GSM, 100% cotton watercolor paper. This retails for $16.95. You can't go wrong with this paper. You can't go wrong. Not in my opinion. To each their own. You may disagree with me if you might have tried it and didn't care for it. But in my opinion, this is and it's a block. It's not a pad, it's a block. So you don't have to stretch your paper. You don't have to, you can tape a border off if you want it. You don't need to tape it down. I love Meeden's paper. Highly recommend. But if we add all of those 4 things from the Curated collection up, that is a retail value before the sale price on the watercolor paints of $67.80. Guys, you can order this today for, at the time that I'm recording this, $34.95. And use the code CLARK10. That's a capital CLARK, number 10. And get a discount off of that order. So you can save even more. Already, right off the top, before any extra discount by using my code. you're saving twice what this add-on is going to cost you. You can't afford not to. Is that the way? Do you guys justify stuff like that to yourselves sometimes? Oh my goodness, I definitely do. Like, but it's a great deal. And so with the discount, with the sale price of the watercolor paints, that's $64.80 if you bought all of these things individually. And today, like I said, it's $34.95. You're saving $29.85. Still a lot more in savings than what this add-on at the time of recording this is. $15.95, just under $16. Yeah. And then of course there also is the water well if you are interested in that. But everything is linked below. I really hope you'll come along on this journey with me into these Meeden supplies, because I cannot wait to paint with these. So far, I'm absolutely loving this. Cobalt blue is PB29. That is our ultramarine right here. And PW6, our titanium white. So you could mix this cobalt. It's going to granulate like a cobalt, but it's not actually a cobalt pigment. Okay, which that, if you're someone who, again, is concerned about painting with cobalts or with cadmium colors, that's not in here. So yes, this is just, I'm really liking these so far. I'm liking how the colors look. Let's look next at our next color is cerulean blue. So cerulean blue, again, PW6 and PB15. As I am now swatching the last blue on my palette, let me just say, I can now share with you the one thing I'm disappointed as I looked at this. There's no phthalo blue on this palette. Phthalo blue is in the colors. Phthalo blue, PB15, is in this Prussian blue. But that also includes the pigment Violet 23, so it leans more red than blue or than green. Then we have ultramarine, love it. Then we have cobalt blue, which is our ultramarine in the white. And then we have cerulean blue, which is white. And again, it's PW6 and PB15, which is phthalo blue, but we don't have actual phthalo blue. Meeden, if you ever change up the colors in this palette, I would love to give up even Prussian blue, right? Because I have violet. I can mix this. I would love to give up Prussian blue and have PB15, just PB15, phthalo blue. Because you'll see here in a moment, they give us phthalo green. We have PG7. And then this is pale green, which is PG7 and PY3. PY3 was back here, lemon yellow. So we have this, which I'm assuming is kind of going to give us like what a PG36 would be, which would be like a phthalo green yellow shade. But we're getting there with PG7 and PY3. So let's take a quick peek at that. Yeah, that's what it's looking like. They're just using two pigments to do it. Look how dirty my water is. And you notice I keep going to that corner because I will wipe my brush on that paint puck and then wipe my brush off here. I get most of the pigment out of my brush, and then look how clean the clean side is staying. I really am enjoying having this rinse well. Thank you so much, Meeden, for sending that along, because they did not have to do that. And I definitely appreciate it. I had it on my list. I was going to purchase it anyways. Like I said, I wanted it in the original watercolor set that I was going to use for my very first curated box. When it wasn't available, I was going to go ahead and purchase it separately. I just had the good fortune that the folks at Meeden decided to send that on to me, and I am definitely very grateful for that. So phthalo green, PG7, but do know it was something I was already going to get. So I am happy, very happy to endorse that for them. I think this is fantastic. It is one of my new favorite things that I use in the studio every single day. And yes, I still have, and of course you can see, I have paint puck that I put in it, but I do still have my paint puck rinse, water wells, because those are my backups if I needed extra water. Right? They still sit here full of water, ready and waiting for me. I have 2 that sit on my desk all the time, and when that's where my my wash is sitting. My paint puck is holding that so that it can sit there, like this to drip dry. That's the way I always dry my brushes, or I lay them flat. With that phthalo green, it's beautiful. I like the pale green too. I love greens because I love to paint landscapes. So I like that. Now the next color is sap green. Sap green is PG7 and PY1. So we have the mixture of the phthalo green and the pale yellow this time. So unlike pale green, which was this yellow and the phthalo, the sap green is this one and the yellow. And I think that these are great to include because we're always trying to, if you're trying to mix your greens, you're going to go through, if you had the phthalo green and you were trying to mix from there, you're going to go through, I did it again. You're going to go through a lot of that color. Well, if you're like me and like to paint landscapes, you will. Or you're going to really use up your blues and your yellows. So I thank you for including the convenience greens in this palette. And look at that sap green. Love it. Oh, yeah. I would definitely use this. And I would love to see how this looks. And I'll do it for you before we're done. I will try to remember. We're getting close. I shouldn't forget that quickly, but it can happen. We get to talking. My mind wanders. But I would love to see how this sap green looks with this PBK11, which is black. You would know this as a Mars Black PBK11. Okay, our last green is deep green. And deep green is a mixture. They say deep green. I'm guessing this looks like a phthalo turquoise because this is a mixture of PG7, phthalo green, and PB15, phthalo blue. I'm thrilled that I have this color because you didn't give me phthalo blue to be able to mix it for myself. So yeah, this is definitely a convenience color I'm thrilled to have. But I would use the phthalo blue in other mixing, and I would actually prefer to have just plain phthalo blue, not mixed with any white or violet in this palette. And I think that that's a pretty basic color. So yeah, if there's any change to this in the future, that's what I would love to see come into play. Yeah, look at that. That is like a phthalo turquoise. It's leaning a little stronger to the green side versus the blue side. In a light wash, I think this would almost look Viridian-like. Yeah, in a light wash, I think it would look very similar to PG18. It is definitely leaning more green than blue. Now, see, if I had phthalo blue in the palette, I would be able to easily lean that more the other way. I have a lot of water right there. I'm going to dry this. I want to see how well this brush will draw in that water. Nice. Okay. So yeah, it holds a lot of water, but it'll also drink up some of that if you end up with too much on your paper. So far, I'm like at least the largest round. I'm loving it. And I did really like, I like the wash as well. The bristles are so long, it holds a lot of water. Next up, we have Burnt Sienna, which is PR101. Now, I told you guys, I've said this a lot in recent, well, it seems like I've said it a lot because I've just recorded a lot of videos kind of back to back. But Burnt Sienna is one that can be either a PBR7 or some companies do PR101. This is a case where Meeden has chosen the PR Pigment Red 101 for its Burnt Sienna. Let's take a look. Whoa, I just picked up a lot of paint I did not want. It's a very light version of the color. Even trying to bring more pigment in. Pretty light Burnt Sienna. But it is nice. Next up, we have Raw Umber. And here's one I've talked to you guys about a bit too. And Raw Umber, this one, their umbers, I have said before that I'm pretty sure some companies use PBR 6 versus PBR 7. Meeden is one of those companies. And so this, as I'm forgetting to wet my paper because I'm talking to you again, this wash brush definitely holds a lot of water, but I was able to wipe that off and pull up quite a bit too. So yeah, so far I'm really liking the brushes. All right, Raw Umber PBR 6 and PBK 11. I am really hoping to see some granulation here. PBK 11 is the black that we will see in a moment. Now these colors I am using wet, straight from the tube. Normally I would mix these on, you'd see me mix it out here. I haven't done that yet. Of course, once these dry and you're adding the water and reactivating it from the pan, I'm really curious how that goes too. And so we're definitely going to find out in the part 2 of this, which you'll see in a couple weeks, when we come back together and paint with these. I say 2 weeks because I want to give those of you who wish to order this time to get it delivered. All right. Raw Umber. Next up, we have Burnt Umber. Here's what I was saying last time. I wish I would have swapped where those were in the palette, but it is fine. Burnt Umber is, again, PBR 6 and PY 42. That's up here. That's our yellow ochre. These really, because they dried on the skin, I'm like trying to break through that little skin that's on top so I can just get to the wet paint. I could definitely see me using this color in some landscapes. So I'm really curious when we get to part 2 if I am going to prefer them wet out of the tube like this, or if they dry down well, do I prefer them re-wet, re-wetting them from dried pans. Look how clean my water stayed from swatching all of these colors. That is pretty dirty. That is really still quite clean. Now I think the paint puck helps some, but I love this combination. All right, last but certainly not least is PBK 11, this black. I am someone who likes to paint with black. I don't mind using black in my watercolor. If you are more of a watercolor purist and you go, oh no, never black or white, well, then you have 2 colors you could hand off to somebody else. But if you do like to paint with black and white, and again, I paint with black, but I rarely paint with white. So, it's just a matter of preference. We all find we have different preferences, and that's fine. Look at that. All right, I want to see. I'm just going to pull that over here, but I want to see, are we going to get the granulation that I would expect from a PBK 11? Possibly not. These are, like I said, I do think that these are more geared towards like student grade paint, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Let's look at these colors though. How bright are those colors? I'm liking what I'm seeing. I like the overall palette, with that one exception that I wish I had just a plain phthalo blue. But I think we're going to be able to really use this palette and even mix ourselves some colors. I'm going to get this off of my block so that it can dry, and we're going to mix a couple and just see how some of these play together. As I'm about to pull this from my block, I did realize I have one of these little tools, kind of like a letter opener. I actually got one when I ordered my paper from Meeden. However, this does come with the block of paper, but I don't see it coming with the tool to remove the pad from the paper from the block, rather. Before I had one of these, I used a palette knife. I'm not sure if it was just an oversight in my box, because I know when I order the paper from Meeden, like I said, I got one. When I ordered both the Baohong from Meeden and the Meeden brand, the one with the Meeden branding, I dug that into my paper because I was going fast. I wasn't paying attention, and it's fine. It's just a swatch sheet. And see, sometimes you're going to have like that blue will kind of stay with it as you work through. It very easily comes right off. So don't worry about that. Look at the colors. There is a look. The black is still drying. My yellow ochre that I was hoping was going to granulate a little more, there, the PY42, not so much. I can see some granulation in the ultramarine, not a ton of it. I'm not seeing a ton of, some, but not a ton of granulation. Like PR101, that's another color that will granulate. There's some there, but it's not heavy. They're not heavy granulators. So if you're someone who doesn't care for that, I think you'll still really enjoy these colors that normally do granulate. That said, we're starting to see some coming through in that raw umber. And then that black, verdict's still out on that. I may not have done them like in a wet enough wash either for that to really shine. But I find that I usually get decent granulation on this paper. So I think that they're just colors. Like, look at the ultramarine there. I just think their colors don't granulate as much as other versions with that pigment in it. And again, I don't think that that's a bad thing or a good thing. I don't think that's a positive or a negative unless you prefer them to be heavily granulating in those versions like the PBK11 and the PB29, the ultramarine and the Mars Black. But if you don't, then this is definitely a positive. It's going to be a good thing for you. The violet, the PB23, that really, you can see a little bit of the mass tone there. I didn't get as much and I think that's because, like I said, these are starting to skin over and I wasn't able to activate them the way I normally would, and I didn't pull any out on here. So that could be affecting this swatch as well. You have plenty of yellows. You have a good section of reds here. So we have like 4 yellows. You do have an orange. We have 4 reds coming into our purples. 4 blues. Yes, one of those is not just plain phthalo blue. We have it in 2 different locations, but I would have moved this one down here on my palette too. Like if I did these again, if I did this in a different lay, if I did it all again, after seeing the swatches, I would lay them out just a little differently. But as long as I have the swatch card, it doesn't matter what order they're in. But then we have, look at this, 4 greens and 4 earth colors. So really, you've got 4 yellows, 4 reds, 4 blues, 4 greens, 4 earth tones, an orange, and a couple of your purples. This is a great overall set for someone who is just putting their feet in the water, testing out watercolors, wants to maybe not spend a fortune, but wants to see, am I going to like this? It's immediately putting you on cotton paper, which I think is only going to help your experience. And I'm going to reserve my final opinion for once we paint with these, as far as like the overall opinion of this set from Meeden. But for our first curated collection, things that I want to focus on, all of these things are definitely curated to work with each other. They definitely do work nicely together. That was one of the things that I found lacking in a lot of art subscription boxes that I wanted to change. I love that you're saving a lot over versus getting them each individually. Now, yes, you could choose to get them individually. You might say, I don't want the paint, but I would love to have that palette and I want the watercolor paper. You can purchase these 2 things separately and do that. There's also other palettes to choose from. What if you're not a watercolor person? You know what? There are even other sets to choose from, like an oil set and an acrylic set. So I encourage you to click the link below to Meeden and check out all that they do have to offer, because aside from our curated collection today, I really think that you might find something that you could enjoy. Oh, I'm going to move that big old heavy water pot. But look at that. That water is still so clean. And that is definitely so not. But I could continue using this for a while. In fact, I would continue using this until this water was starting to get dirty as well. And then, just clean them all out and start again. Now, I didn't mix on here, and I told you I was going to do a couple mixes, one of which I wanted to see that sap green and the black. Let's look at that. I'm going to mix on here so you can see how that looks when we mix on it. So I wanted the sap green. Okay, so I'm going to bring some of that over. I love that it just stays where I put it. Beading palettes, they just make me crazy. You start to mix on porcelain and you'll be like, nope. If you're mixing on a palette right now that beads up, once you mix on a porcelain palette. Okay, and then we have our black. Ooh, look at that. That's a nice deep. I'm thinking Christmas trees or evergreens. Right. Kind of looking where I've marked, where I put my water down. Oh, look at that color. Oh, I love it. Lots of water still in here. You had to know I was going to paint a tree or two. Every little tree needs a friend. I really like that mix. That's a mix I'll probably create often. Another one that I'd like to see is, because we have our black, but you know what we don't have in this set is a Payne's Gray. But we do have ultramarine blue. I'm really hoping that I enjoy once these are dried down, like how they re-wet. All right, and we're going to take our ultramarine blue and we're going to come over here to our burnt sienna. Now, one of the things about working with paint straight from the tube is sometimes you will use, especially as a beginner watercolorist, you're going to use way too much pigment than you need. All right, you ready? We're going to pull some of that right down here. And if I want my gray more warm, I'm going to bring less blue into it. And if I want it to be cooler, well, I'm going to bring more blue down into it. And you can very quickly make yourself a Payne's Gray that will lean more warm or cool depending on what's cohesive for your painting. So let me share that with you. Look at that gray. And I'm just going to bring these together. More pigment. I'm trying to remember where my ultramarine was. I am not reaching in before they've even dried, contaminating my colors. I almost did. See how fast that dried on that palette? Things dry so quickly here in the studio. Oh, I've got a big chunk of that burnt sienna there. See, if you want to make it darker, it's more pigment, less water. I could mix this almost black if I kept going and was doing more pigment, less water. But look at that beautiful Payne's Gray. So you can easily mix that for yourself. Those are two of my favorite colors, and I will mix Payne's Gray that way with either a PR 101 burnt sienna or a PBR7 burnt sienna. So there's just a little tip. I really like the gray you can mix with that, and that's in relation to, let's re-wet PBK11, right, which is just our black. So look at that. See them kind of side by side there. The black, when it's washed down, this is a little warmer than what I made. Of course, I added more blue, which I tend to do. I tend to add a little bit more blue than orange. And let me know if you order this first curated set. I really hope you do. I just can't wait to use these with you guys. But if you do order the curated set, let me know. Would you like to see more things on like mixing with this set? There's a much bluer version of the Payne's Gray. See, so you can really control exactly how it is just by whether you put a little bit more blue or a little bit more of that burnt sienna. And if there's colors that you have trouble mixing, drop that in the comments as well, because I would love to include the color that you specifically would like help on in a future video. Just coming back in with some more, layering up these little trees with that mixture I did. Just letting the tip of that brush dance around. And can I say, I'm loving the point on this brush. It holds its point very well. Look at these. Look at the lines. Look how nice and thin you can get with that, right? Or I can really press down. Now I've just mixed a green in with it, and it's just all crazy. The brush still is not wet. I just don't have enough. I just don't have enough paint. I love the palette. I love that it comes with the lid like this. You see, that's normally what happens. My mixing takes over everywhere. I make some nice leaves with this, if you're someone who likes to paint florals. And you can also do some nice lines, varying that thickness depending on how much you are applying pressure. We will take a look at more of these brushes, and we will definitely be looking at these brushes more in depth with future videos. I was going to mix in here. That was my intent, and then I just went right back to this. I wanted to see a little bit more blue. That cerulean mixed with the deep green, that's not coming out on my monitor as blue as it is on my paper. That's gorgeous. I just think of like a Caribbean sea. As far as the one that would come with, if you don't do the add-on, let's see. Let's look at our rose violet. Put some of that in there. And there we go. And ultramarine. Let's see if we can make a rose of ultramarine. All right, and our ultramarine. I'm just going to mix those two together. A tiny bit more ultramarine. Getting all that out of my brush, or as much as I can. If these colors were dried down, I would have just gone right back to my ultramarine. But again, I don't want to contaminate them before they fully dried. Isn't that the way? Then you go to mix and you're like, oh, it's not. Now it's too purple. All right, there's purple. Put a little bit more rose to that. There we go. That's what I was looking for. I like that. And it's kind of, it's funny because in the well of that palette, and I don't know if it'll do it, I'm going to add a bit of water to this mixture on the paper. I'll show you up close on the palette in a second. I'm really making this a wet wash because I want to see. I'm going to give that a moment to dry. Look at how the colors, like, can you see the separation in some of the colors in the edges of the palette? I want to see if it'll do that as it dries naturally on the paper. But look at some of the colors. You're going to be able to mix some really beautiful colors with this. You already have vermilion, which is a nice orange in itself. This one here. But I think that with this scarlet red and the pale yellow, even the gamboge, I think you're going to be able to mix some really nice oranges. Now, of course, this vermilion is scarlet red, and this orange yellow, PO13. But I think if you mix the scarlet red with the gamboge or the pale yellow, you're going to get a really nice orange. If you want a more muted orange, go with your crimson red and one of these two to mix your orange, and you're going to have a much more like burnt orange. And I bet it would be beautiful. All right, look at the color. I would definitely be mixing that again. You guys know you're going to see that. Look at just, could you imagine like this for just like a misty background with trees? Oh, this would be perfect. So it's starting to settle. Seeing a little bit of blue at the edge. I would really need to let this rest for a bit longer to see if it separates more. Okay, I would definitely say that having a little bit more of that rose in with the ultramarine, look at how you can see the pink settled into all the little spaces in the tooth of the paper. That is really pretty. Definitely something that I could see me mixing again for a floral. If I paint like lupins in the spring or, well, any number of flowers, really. Irises, I could just really see that color being mixed and used again. I hope you will join me in the comments and let me know what you think of my idea to create some curated collections that I think could help you replace maybe an art subscription box. I'm really looking forward to doing these periodically. If you guys really like them, they could become a regular, like once a month thing. I hope that you enjoy the very first curated collection that I was able to do with the help of Meeden, of course. Huge thank you to Meeden, not only for sending me some of these supplies, but also for giving us a code for all of you to use should you want to come on this journey with me and try these products. Now, let me just say, if you're going to order these before our next video, if you get the add-on palette that I talked about, it's linked below. Put your paints in the order that you prefer into your palette, maybe swatch them out so that you have a little bit of a feel for them before we dive into that first section. We're going to let these dry. I will come back in a couple days and pin a comment and let you know how mine did dry out. And I will share it over on in both my community tab here on YouTube. I can share it over on Discord or my social media. But I'll let you know how my colors dried down in my palette. That's all you really need to do to be prepared for the next video is have your colors in the palette, have them swatched out, maybe play with them a little bit, get a feel for them. You're gonna have 20 sheets of paper in your watercolor block. There's plenty of pages to play and create with. This palette, can I just share? I cleaned off both this palette and this palette. I just want to show you, this is one of the benefits of porcelain. There's no staining. Your palettes come so beautifully clean. Unlike some of the metal or plastic palettes that once you put a phthalo color on those, forget getting it off because it is just going to stain so bad. That color just does not ever want to come off. But these, perfectly clean. Yeah, I definitely recommend. So the two possible add-ons is this palette here and the water well. Again, I will put the link for the little tiny paint pucks that I used down below, but that wasn't something I was considering an add-on this time, and it's not something that you can order from Meeden, so it is just a complete extra out there. I'm just going to include it because I've shown it to you guys, and obviously you see how well they work in addition to this little thing. I look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks when we will come back and paint with these, and I will give you my final thoughts, and you'll be able to chat with me in the comments about your overall thoughts about how you feel about this collection. First impressions, I'm excited. I can't wait. I think this is going to be wonderful. I definitely recommend them at my first impression. Okay, guys, I'm going to pop another video up right here that you might like to watch next. And once we've gone past that recording, I'll try to add it up there too for future people who find these collections and maybe want to see both and get to them easily. Keep creating, my friends, and I will see you in a video real soon. Perhaps you'll meet me right over here. Bye, guys.